Imagine growing up listening to two very different voices about money. One voice belonged to a man who believed deeply in education, job security, and climbing the safe, predictable ladder of life. He worked hard, earned respect, and valued stability. He was intelligent, disciplined, and convinced that success came through academic excellence and a steady paycheck. The other voice came from a man who had little formal education, but carried a sharp sense of how money really worked. He spoke of opportunities, investments, and building systems that could earn even while you slept. He didn't fear risks the way others did. Instead, he studied them, managed them, and used them to grow wealth. To him, money was not something to chase, but something to command. Now imagine being a child caught between these two influences. On one side, a father who insisted that working for a secure job was the only path to success. On the other side, a father figure who believed that true success lay in financial education, ownership, and freedom. Both men were sincere, both wanted the best for the next generation, but their philosophies about money were worlds apart. This is where the story begins. A story not just about money, but about the way money shapes our lives, our choices, and even our future. It is about the invisible lessons that are never taught in classrooms, but determine whether we live in financial struggle or financial freedom. As children, most of us are told to study hard, get good grades, and then find a secure job. We are taught that stability comes from a paycheck, that promotions and titles will bring happiness, and that saving little by little will one day give us comfort. But what if this path, the one that millions follow faithfully, is actually a trap? What if the promise of security is only an illusion? At the same time, we hear of another path, a path less spoken of, one that talks about building assets instead of collecting liabilities, about creating income streams instead of waiting for salaries, about using knowledge and courage to step outside the race that keeps so many people running, but never reaching the finish line. This audiobook is inspired by that very contrast. Two fathers, two roads, and the powerful lessons that came from walking between them. It is not about telling you which father was right or wrong. Instead, it is about opening your mind to the truth that money is not just about earning, but about learning. It is about showing that financial freedom does not belong to a chosen few, but to anyone willing to think differently. Throughout this journey, you will hear stories, reflections, and lessons that reveal how wealth is built, how financial struggles are created, and how the way you think about money will decide the kind of life you live. It will challenge old beliefs, stir uncomfortable questions, and most importantly, guide you toward new ways of seeing opportunities that were always there, waiting to be noticed. This is not a quick-fix promise or a get-rich-overnight tale. It is a call to awareness, a call to rethink the habits and choices that silently govern our financial destiny. By the end, you will not only understand how money works, but you will also understand how your mind works in relation to it. And once that changes, everything else changes too. So as you listen, keep your heart open and your mind alert. Picture yourself standing at a crossroads with two voices guiding you in opposite directions. One tells you to play it safe, to follow the crowd, to hold on to what little you have. The other tells you to be bold, to learn how the game is played, and to create a life where money works for you instead of the other way around. Which voice will you choose to follow? Which road will you take? This is where our journey begins. Chapter 1. The Two Voices of Money. Every child grows up surrounded by voices of guidance. Some of those voices tell us how to behave, others shape how we see the world, and a few quietly plant seeds that decide how we will live the rest of our lives. When it comes to money, most of us hear two kinds of voices. One voice is loud, familiar, and comforting. It tells us to play safe, work hard, and do what everyone else is doing. The other voice is softer, harder to notice, but it whispers a different story. It talks about independence, courage, and building something that lasts. I still remember how those voices sounded to me. The first voice came from a man who believed deeply in education and security. To him, success meant working for a stable company, earning a reliable salary, and retiring with benefits. He often said, "Get good grades, find a safe job, and don't take unnecessary risks." He wasn't wrong in wanting stability, but his view of life was built around fear of failure rather than excitement for possibility. The second voice belonged to a man who had very little formal schooling, but a mind sharp enough to see opportunities where others saw obstacles. He believed that working only for money was a trap. Instead, he taught that the goal was to make money work for you. While one father told me to climb the ladder, the other told me to own the ladder. He would say, "Don't settle for earning wages. Learn to create wealth that grows even while you sleep." As a young boy, I didn't know which voice to believe. Both sounded wise in their own way. On one hand, security gave comfort. On the other, freedom sounded thrilling. When my biological father, the man I lovingly called my poor dad, advised me, he wanted me to follow the traditional path of safety, where society would approve and life would be predictable. When my rich dad, the father of my best friend, spoke, he wanted me to challenge the system, to learn skills that school would never teach, and to use those skills to design a life of independence. At that age, I couldn't fully understand the weight of their words. But as I grew, I began to see how these voices influenced the choices of everyone around me. I watched friends who listened only to the safe voice end up chasing promotions, struggling with bills, and living in constant fear of losing their jobs. At the same time, I saw people who followed the daring voice take risks, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, but always moving toward greater control of their future. These two voices are not just mine. They live inside every one of us. The safe voice tells you to study hard, get a degree, and hold tightly to your paycheck. It tells you that debt is dangerous, that investment is risky, and that comfort is the ultimate prize. The bold voice challenges you to think differently. It tells you to learn how money flows, to understand assets and liabilities, to see risk not as danger but as opportunity. And so, the battle begins. Which voice will you trust? The decision may seem small at first, but it shapes everything that follows. The safe voice may keep you sheltered, but it will also keep you confined. The bold voice may push you into unknown territory, but it will also open doors that you never imagined existed. When I look back, I realize that my life's greatest lessons came not from textbooks or classrooms, but from listening carefully to these two voices and choosing which one to follow. That choice did not just affect my bank account, it affected the way I saw life, freedom, and possibility. The truth is, every listener here has the same choice. You too have those voices inside you. You might hear your parents telling you to play safe. You might hear society pushing you to fit into a mold. But somewhere deep inside, there is another voice calling you to step out, to take control, to live differently. This chapter is not just about the fathers I had. It is about the fathers we all carry within us, the voices of caution and courage, of fear and freedom. And the first step toward financial freedom is not learning about money itself, but learning which voice you choose to follow. Chapter 2. Why Schools Don't Teach Wealth. When we think of education, we imagine schools as the place where all knowledge is passed down, where the foundation of our future is built. We spend the earliest and most important years of our lives inside classrooms, learning history, mathematics, science, and literature. Teachers remind us that if we study hard and achieve good grades, doors will open. We are told that this is the only path to a successful life. And yet, if schools truly prepare us for the world, why do so many graduates step into adulthood carrying heavy debts, unable to manage their money, and fearful of financial decisions? The truth is, schools were never designed to teach us about wealth. They were designed to produce employees, not entrepreneurs. Decades ago, when education systems were being shaped, the world needed disciplined workers who could follow orders, keep schedules, and perform tasks that kept industries running. That was the age of factories, the age of security through lifelong employment. Back then, teaching children how to handle money was not the priority. Teaching them how to fit into the system was. This is why we are trained to become specialists in fields like engineering, medicine, or law, but very few of us are ever taught the basics of financial survival. We can solve complex equations, but many cannot balance a budget. We can write essays about philosophy, but struggle to understand how credit cards trap us with interest. We can memorize historical battles, yet fail to recognize the battle happening in our own lives when bills pile up faster than our income. I remember sitting in classrooms wondering why no one ever spoke about money. Teachers explained theories and formulas, but never once did they explain the difference between an asset and a liability. They encouraged us to dream of good jobs, but never of financial independence. It was almost as if money was a secret subject, something too dangerous to talk about, something reserved only for the few who already understood it. This silence is not accidental. By keeping financial education outside of schools, the system ensures that most people grow up dependent on jobs, dependent on paychecks, and dependent on others to make financial decisions for them. The result is a society where people spend their lives working hard for money without ever learning how to make money work for them. Think about it. From the time we are children, we are rewarded for obedience. We are graded for repeating what teachers want to hear. Creativity is often pushed aside, and questioning the system is frowned upon. This is not the soil in which financial independence grows. Because to be financially free, one must think differently, take risks, and challenge conventional wisdom. The consequence of this gap in education is visible everywhere. Millions of people graduate each year, proud of their degrees, yet unsure of how to pay off student loans. Many land stable jobs, only to find themselves living paycheck to paycheck, trapped in the very cycle they thought education would help them escape. Others save diligently, believing that one day retirement will bring peace, only to discover that inflation and expenses swallow their savings faster than expected. And so, the cycle continues. Parents who were never taught about money cannot teach their children. Schools that refuse to adapt continue to send out generations unprepared for the financial realities of life. Society praises academic achievements but remains silent on financial literacy. This is why those who do take the time to learn about money often seem to live in a different world. They play by a different set of rules. While most work for money, they understand how to make money flow toward them. They see opportunities others overlook because their minds are trained not by traditional education, but by financial education. This chapter is not an attack on schools. Education is valuable. Knowledge is powerful. But we must recognize its limits. Schools can teach us how to earn a living, but they rarely teach us how to build wealth. They prepare us to pass exams, but not to pass through the challenges of real financial life. If we depend only on the system to guide us, we will end up like most people, working hard, saving a little, and wondering why freedom always feels just out of reach. The lesson here is simple, but life-changing. If you want to be financially free, you cannot wait for schools to give you the answers. You must decide to learn on your own. Read, observe, seek mentors, experiment, and never stop questioning the rules that society tells you are unbreakable. Because often, those rules were designed not to liberate you, but to keep you in place. The world outside the classroom is changing fast. Jobs vanish, industries collapse, technology transforms everything. But one thing never changes: the need to understand money. The people who learn this truth early will adapt, survive, and thrive. Those who wait for the system to teach them will always find themselves behind. And that is why financial education is the greatest subject that schools refuse to teach. It is the hidden curriculum of life, and the responsibility to learn it falls on each of us. Chapter 3. The Secret Language of Assets and Liabilities. When most people think of money, they think of how much they earn. A bigger salary, a promotion, or a new job offer often feels like the key to a better life. But the truth is, wealth is not determined by how much you earn. It is determined by how much you keep. And more importantly, how that money grows once it is in your hands. There is a simple language that separates the rich from everyone else. It is not complicated. It does not require advanced degrees. And it is not a secret hidden in financial textbooks. It comes down to understanding the difference between two words: assets and liabilities. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out. That is all. Yet this simple distinction changes everything about how you view money. Think about the way most people live. They get a paycheck, and almost immediately that money begins to flow out. Rent, bills, groceries, credit card payments, and loans swallow their income. When they want to celebrate success, they often buy things that look impressive, but quietly drain their wallets. A new car, for example, feels like an achievement. But every month, the payments, insurance, and maintenance take money away. To many, this car is a symbol of wealth. In reality, it is a liability. Now picture someone else who makes the same paycheck, but chooses differently. Instead of spending all their income on things that depreciate, they set aside money for something that generates returns. They invest in a small rental property that provides rent every month. They buy stocks that pay dividends, or they start a side business that earns even when they are not physically working. That property, that stock, that business, these are assets. They quietly put money back into the pocket of their owner. Over time, the difference becomes striking. One person works harder and harder, hoping a salary will eventually make them wealthy, while the other slowly builds assets that multiply their income without demanding more hours of labor. This is the hidden truth that so few people understand. It is why many high-income earners still live paycheck to paycheck, while some ordinary workers eventually become financially free. Earning more does not automatically make you rich. What matters is whether your money is building assets or feeding liabilities. The problem is, society often confuses the two. We are taught to see a house we live in as an asset. But if every month the mortgage, taxes, and repairs are draining us, then it is not giving money back, it is taking it away. The rich do not get fooled by appearances. They ask one question before every purchase: does this put money into my pocket, or does it take it out? Once you learn this language, the world looks different. You no longer see a paycheck as your only lifeline. You begin to notice opportunities around you, small streams that could one day grow into rivers of income. And you also become cautious of traps, those shiny things that promise status, but only lock you deeper into debt. I remember the first time I truly understood this. It was like a veil lifting from my eyes. Suddenly, I could see why some families always struggled, no matter how much they earned, while others, even with modest beginnings, quietly built wealth. It was not luck. It was not chance. It was the simple discipline of acquiring assets instead of drowning in liabilities. Learning this language does not require you to be rich already. It only requires awareness. The moment you choose to buy one small asset, you take a step toward financial freedom. The moment you pause before purchasing something shiny and ask yourself, is this really an asset? Or is it a liability? You begin to change the course of your financial life. It is not about denying yourself joy or living with nothing. It is about learning how to make money flow in the right direction. If you let it flow out, you will always feel the weight of scarcity. If you channel it into assets, you will slowly, steadily build the foundation of abundance. The language of assets and liabilities may be simple, but it is the foundation of all wealth, and once you understand it, you will never look at money the same way again. Chapter 4. Escaping the Paycheck Trap. For most people, life feels like a race that never ends. Every morning they wake up, go to work, collect their paycheck at the end of the month, and then watch it disappear almost instantly into bills, rent, food, and debts. Then the cycle begins again. This endless loop is often called the rat race. And once you recognize it, you begin to see how powerful and destructive it can be. The paycheck trap is built on fear and comfort. Fear of not having enough, fear of losing a job, fear of stepping outside the safe path, and comfort, because that paycheck feels reliable, like a warm blanket on a cold night. It arrives regularly. It gives a sense of stability, and for a moment, it feels like control. But in truth, it is the illusion of control. Because once the paycheck is gone, the anxiety returns, and we wait again for the next one to arrive. The system is designed this way. We are trained from childhood to depend on jobs, to trade hours for money, and to build our lives around the security of a salary. But what happens when that job disappears? What happens when the company restructures, when the economy crashes, or when health no longer allows us to work the same way? Suddenly, the very thing we depended on reveals itself as fragile, and the comfort we thought was permanent vanishes overnight. I remember watching friends fall into this trap. They worked long hours, some even earned impressive salaries, yet they could never escape the cycle. Their expenses grew with their income. The more they earned, the more they spent, often on things that looked like success, but were really just liabilities, dressed in disguise. They bought bigger houses, fancier cars, and newer gadgets, but with each purchase, their dependence on the paycheck grew stronger. They thought they were moving forward, but in reality, they were running faster on the same wheel. Escaping this trap does not mean abandoning work. It means shifting the way you see money. Instead of asking, how can I earn more? You begin to ask, how can I create income that doesn't depend on me working every hour of the day? That shift is small in words, but revolutionary in practice. The rich understand this truth. They do not work harder just to increase their salaries. They use their income to build assets, to create streams of cash flow that continue even if they stop working. They invest in businesses, properties, and ideas that multiply their money. They may work hard, but their effort builds systems that free them instead of chaining them to the next paycheck. The tragedy is that many people spend their entire lives without ever realizing that there is a way out. They believe the rat race is normal, that stress is just part of adulthood, and that retirement is the only finish line. But by the time retirement comes, many are too exhausted, too indebted, or too dependent on others to truly enjoy freedom. The truth is, you don't have to wait until old age to escape. You don't need to win the lottery or inherit wealth. What you need is awareness and courage. Awareness to recognize when you are trapped, and courage to take small but consistent steps toward building assets. Each step, no matter how small, weakens the power of the paycheck trap. This escape is not easy because the world around you will always encourage the opposite. Advertisements scream for your money. Banks encourage you to borrow for things you do not need. Society praises visible success, even when it is built on fragile foundations. It takes strength to say no, to choose a different path, and to quietly build wealth that others cannot see. But that strength is what separates those who live in freedom from those who live in fear. If you are listening to this, perhaps you already feel the weight of the cycle. Perhaps you know the anxiety of waiting for the next paycheck, of watching your money vanish as quickly as it arrives. If so, take this chapter as a reminder that you are not powerless. The trap exists, but it is not unbreakable. The door out is there, and it opens the moment you decide to stop being a slave to your paycheck and start building a life where money works for you. Escaping the paycheck trap is not just about money. It is about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your freedom. It is about stepping out of a race that was never meant to be won and walking toward a life where you choose the pace, the direction, and the destination. Chapter 5. The Power of Mindset Over Money. Money itself is not the real problem. The true struggle begins in the mind. Before a single dollar is earned or spent, our thoughts, our fears, and our beliefs decide what we will do with it. That is why some people can win the lottery and end up broke within a few years, while others with modest incomes slowly build steady wealth. The difference is not in the money, it is in the mindset that controls it. From a young age, we are trained to see money through the lens of fear. Fear of not having enough, fear of losing what little we have, fear of being judged by others if we fail. This fear is powerful. It makes people cling tightly to their paychecks, avoid opportunities, and settle for less than they are capable of. Fear convinces us that risk is dangerous and that security is the highest goal. But alongside fear, another force drives our decisions: greed. It may not always appear as greed for millions or luxury. Sometimes it is simply the desire for comfort, for instant pleasure, for the feeling of reward today instead of patience for tomorrow. Greed whispers, "Spend it now, enjoy it now, you deserve it." And so many people give in, buying things they do not need, stretching their debts, and locking themselves deeper into financial struggle. The irony is that both fear and greed come from the same place: a lack of understanding about money. When you don't truly know how money works, you fear losing it, and at the same time, you crave more of it without direction. This is why education of the mind is more important than the size of the paycheck. The rich have a different mindset. They do not see money as something to fear or worship. They see it as a tool, a servant, something that can be directed with knowledge and discipline. Instead of asking, "What if I lose?" they ask, "What can I learn if I try?" Instead of chasing temporary rewards, they think of long-term growth. Their minds are trained to see opportunities where others see obstacles. because they have learned to master their emotions around money. I remember moments when fear nearly stopped me from taking steps forward. The thought of investing in something new, of putting my money into something uncertain, made my heart race. But when I compared that fear to the reality of staying trapped in the paycheck cycle forever, I realized that not taking action was the bigger risk. Fear never disappears, but with the right mindset, it can be managed, even turned into fuel for growth. Mindset is also about the stories we tell ourselves. A person who says, "I can't afford this," closes the door in their own mind. But someone who asks, "How can I afford this?" opens a window to creativity and solutions. One statement is final. The other is a challenge that sparks the imagination. The words we use with ourselves shape the possibilities we are willing to see. Changing your mindset about money does not happen overnight. It requires practice, reflection, and the courage to step outside of the patterns you grew up with. If you were raised to believe that debt is always evil, you might resist the idea that debt can sometimes be used as a tool. If you were taught that saving alone will make you secure, it may take time to see that savings without investment is not enough. These shifts are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. The greatest freedom comes not when you earn more, but when you no longer let fear and greed control your decisions. When you can look at an opportunity with calm judgment instead of panic. When you can delay pleasure today to build something greater tomorrow. When you can treat money as a servant and not a master. That is when you begin to step into true financial independence. The power of mindset over money is the foundation of everything else. Without it, even the best strategies and tools will fail. With it, even small steps can turn into great achievements. And the good news is, anyone can change their mindset. No matter where you start, no matter how much or how little you have, the way you think about money can be transformed. And when that happens, the rest of your financial life begins to transform as well. Chapter 6. Why the rich don't work for money. At first, the idea sounds strange. How could anyone not work for money? Isn't that why people wake up early, commute through traffic, and spend their days in offices, shops, or factories? Isn't money the very reason people trade their time and energy? For most of the world, yes, that is the only way life works. But for the wealthy, the game is very different. They do not work for money. They make money work for them. The difference begins with perspective. Most people see money as the destination. Get a job, get paid, and that paycheck becomes the prize. For the rich, money is never the end goal. It is a tool. They work not to earn more hours of pay, but to build systems that generate income long after the work is done. They understand something powerful. If you spend your entire life trading time for money, you will always be limited, because there are only so many hours in a day. Think of the typical worker. Every month their income arrives only because they showed up and performed their job. If they stop, the money stops. Vacations, illnesses, or sudden layoffs reveal how fragile that dependence is. Now picture the wealthy investor or entrepreneur. Even while they sleep, their properties collect rent, their businesses generate sales, their investments pay dividends. Their income is not chained to their presence. It flows because they created something bigger than themselves. This does not mean the rich never work. In fact, many of them work harder than most. But the nature of their work is different. They put their energy into building assets, systems, and opportunities that keep producing long after the effort is made. An author writes a book once, but earns royalties for years. A landlord renovates a property, but rent comes month after month. A business owner sets up operations, and the company continues even when the owner takes a step back. The work is front-loaded. but the rewards are long-lasting. I remember when this lesson first struck me. Watching two men, both respected, both intelligent, but with entirely different relationships with money. One worked tirelessly for promotions, dreaming of a larger paycheck. The other spent his time studying investments, seeking opportunities, and building ventures that would outlive his own labor. At the end of the day, one man had worked for money, while the other had trained money to work for him. It is easy to fall into the trap of believing that wealth is only for the lucky or the privileged. But the principle of making money work is not reserved for the rich. It is available to anyone willing to shift their mindset. Even small steps can open the door. A modest investment that grows quietly over time, a side hustle that generates passive income, a skill that can be turned into a product. These are ways of making money flow without tying it to every waking hour of your life. The reason so many never take this path is fear. The paycheck feels safe. The idea of building something uncertain feels risky. But if you look closely, you realize the paycheck itself is the greater risk. One decision by a company, one downturn in the economy, and the illusion of security disappears. The rich understand this, which is why they do not rely on paychecks. They rely on cash flow. The greatest freedom comes when you are no longer forced to work just to survive. When your needs are covered by assets that generate income, you gain the power to choose. You can choose to work, but not because you must. You can choose to pursue passions, spend time with family, or create new projects, not out of desperation, but out of desire. That is the meaning of financial independence. This chapter is not about rejecting jobs or despising hard work. It is about understanding the limits of working only for money. If you spend your whole life running after a paycheck, you will never truly be free. But if you learn to build streams of income that flow toward you, then you step into a life where money becomes your servant, not your master. And that is why the rich don't work for money. They work for freedom. They work for choice. They work to build a life where their time belongs to them, not to the demands of a paycheck. And once you learn this truth, you will never look at work or money the same way again. Chapter 7. Learning to take calculated risks. Every choice in life carries risk. Crossing the street is a risk. Driving a car is a risk. Even holding on to a job you believe is safe carries hidden risks, because nothing in this world stays the same forever. Yet when it comes to money, most people treat risk as something to fear at all costs. They avoid it, hide from it, and in doing so, they also hide from opportunity. The truth is, wealth is never created in total safety. It is built by people who learn how to step into uncertainty with wisdom. The poor and middle class often see risk as danger. The rich see risk as a possibility to be studied, measured, and managed. This is the difference between gambling and investing, between recklessly throwing money into chance and carefully building wealth through knowledge. When I was younger, I used to believe that the safest path was the smartest one. My poor dad would often say, "Don't take risks. Find stability. Play it safe." He thought that avoiding risk was the way to protect a family. But what I came to realize through my rich dad's teachings was that avoiding risk completely is the biggest risk of all. Because when you avoid risk, you avoid growth. You trap yourself in the paycheck cycle. Always working, always worrying, never free. Taking calculated risks begins with education. You cannot control everything, but you can learn. You can study how investments work. You can research businesses. You can understand cash flow and the difference between an asset and a liability. The more knowledge you gather, the less blind the risk becomes. The rich do not jump without looking. They prepare, they analyze, and then they step forward with courage. I remember watching my rich dad consider new opportunities. He never rushed blindly. He would ask questions, study numbers, and think carefully about the worst that could happen. But once he understood the game, once he had weighed the odds, he was not afraid to act. That is what separates those who succeed from those who stand still. The successful are not reckless, but they also do not wait forever. They step forward when others hesitate, because they know that doing nothing is often the greatest danger. For many people, the word risk is tied to fear of loss. They think, what if I fail? What if I lose everything? But the rich ask a different question. What if I succeed? What if this decision changes everything? By shifting the focus from fear of loss to possibility of gain, the mindset transforms. Of course, not every risk will succeed, but each attempt becomes a lesson. Each failure becomes experience, and each experience builds wisdom for the next opportunity. Even small risks can change a life. Starting a side business, making a small investment, learning a new skill, each carries uncertainty, but each also carries the chance to open new doors. Over time, these small risks build confidence, and confidence is what makes larger risks possible. The world will always tell you to play safe. Friends, family, and society will remind you of the dangers, often because they are projecting their own fears. They mean well, but their advice usually comes from the mindset of protecting what little they have, not from the mindset of building more. If you listen only to their fears, you will inherit their limits. If you train yourself to learn, to prepare, and then to act, you will step into opportunities that others never even notice. The truth is, risk is not something to run from. It is something to embrace wisely. Life itself is a series of risks, and those who learn to manage them with courage create a future that others only dream of. Calculated risks are not reckless. They are choices made with knowledge, awareness, and courage. And when you look at the lives of people who built great wealth, you will find that they all share one thing in common. They took chances others refused to take. They were not always right. They did not always win. But they kept learning, kept trying, and kept moving forward. That persistence, guided by knowledge, is the true art of risk. And so, if you want to walk the path of financial freedom, you must learn not to fear risk, but to respect it. See it clearly, prepare yourself, and then step forward. Because beyond risk lies growth, and beyond growth lies the freedom that so many long for, but so few achieve. Chapter 8, The Importance of Financial Literacy. Knowledge is power, but when it comes to money, the right kind of knowledge is survival. Many people assume that as long as they can earn, save, and spend, they understand enough about money, but the truth is far harsher. Without financial literacy, even a strong income can vanish, even savings can shrink, and even the most promising opportunities can slip away. Financial literacy is not about being good at math or memorizing complicated financial terms. It is about understanding how money truly moves in the real world. It is the ability to read the patterns that others miss, to see the traps hidden in plain sight, and to make decisions that allow your money to grow instead of disappear. Think of taxes, for example. They are one of the greatest expenses people face in their lifetime, yet very few understand how they work. The poor and middle class often carry the heaviest tax burdens because they only rely on wages. The rich, however, learn the laws, understand the system, and build their income through assets and businesses that are taxed differently. It is not about cheating. It is about being educated enough to play the game by the rules that already exist. Debt is another area where financial literacy separates the wealthy from the struggling. Most people fear debt because they only know it as a burden. They borrow for cars, for credit cards, for lifestyles they cannot afford, and the weight of repayment crushes them. But the educated mind sees debt differently. They know that debt can also be used as a tool, borrowed not to consume, but to invest. A mortgage on a rental property, for instance, may create an income that far outweighs the monthly payment. The same instrument that traps one person can set another free, depending on the knowledge behind it. Then there is the concept of compounding. Many have heard the word, but few truly grasp its power. Compounding turns small beginnings into extraordinary outcomes. A modest investment, given time, discipline, and reinvestment, can grow beyond imagination. Yet without understanding, most people interrupt compounding by spending their gains too early or chasing quick profits that vanish. Patience and literacy together create wealth that seems almost magical to the untrained eye. Financial literacy also means being able to read numbers not just on a paycheck, but in life, to look at a financial statement and see the story it tells, to recognize whether a business is healthy or drowning, to understand whether a purchase will quietly drain you or quietly enrich you. The numbers are always speaking. The question is whether we have trained ourselves to understand their language. I have met many intelligent people, doctors, lawyers, professors, who were brilliant in their fields but helpless when it came to money. Their incomes were high, yet they struggled financially because they lacked literacy. At the same time, I have met people with very little formal education who, because they took the time to study money, lived in freedom while others remained trapped. This is why I say financial literacy is not optional. It does not matter how smart you are in other areas. Without it, money will always control you. What makes this even more important today is the speed at which the world changes. Jobs that once lasted a lifetime can disappear overnight. Economies rise and fall. Technology creates industries and destroys them. In such a world, relying only on job skills without financial skills is dangerous. Financial literacy is what allows you to adapt, to survive downturns, and to recognize opportunities before others see them. And the beauty of this knowledge is that it is available to anyone willing to learn. Books, mentors, experiences, even failures, all of these can teach financial literacy. You do not need to be born into wealth. You do not need a degree in finance. What you need is the curiosity to ask, the discipline to study, and the courage to apply what you learn. The lesson is simple. Money will not take care of you just because you work hard. It will not reward you just because you mean well. Money flows toward those who understand it. And if you do not take the time to understand, then no matter how much you earn, you will always find yourself wondering where it went. Financial literacy is the difference between being controlled by money and being in control of it. It is the key that unlocks the door to freedom, security, and opportunity. And once you hold that key, no one can ever take it away from you. Chapter 9, Building Wealth with Purpose. When people first set out to build wealth, they often do it from a place of survival. They want to pay the bills, escape debt, and feel safe. Later, it shifts to a desire for comfort, a better home, a reliable car, some luxuries along the way. But once those needs are met, something interesting happens. People realize that money alone does not satisfy the heart. The big house begins to feel too quiet. The shiny car loses its thrill. The question then arises, what is this wealth for? I have seen people who chased money without purpose. They worked endlessly, sacrificed relationships, and filled their lives with possessions, only to feel a deep emptiness when they finally achieved what they thought they wanted. On the other hand, I have seen people who used money as a tool to create impact, to support their families, to build businesses that offered jobs, to contribute to causes greater than themselves. These people radiated something different. Their wealth was not a cage, it was a source of energy and meaning. Purpose is what keeps wealth from becoming a burden. Without it, money can enslave. With it, money becomes a servant that helps create the life you truly desire. For some, purpose means freedom. The freedom to spend more time with loved ones, to travel, to pursue passions without worrying about bills. For others, purpose means contribution, using wealth to lift others, to provide opportunities, to change lives. And for many, it is a combination of both. Building wealth with purpose also means understanding that money magnifies who you already are. If you are generous, wealth allows you to be more generous. If you are fearful, wealth may make you more fearful of losing it. If you are greedy, wealth can amplify that greed. But if you carry within you a clear vision of why you are building wealth, then the money you create will strengthen that vision instead of distracting you from it. I remember once asking my rich dad why he worked so hard to grow his businesses when he already had more than enough to live comfortably. He smiled and said, "Because it's not about me anymore. It's about what I can leave behind. It's about the lives I can touch." That answer stayed with me. It reminded me that wealth should not be an end in itself, but a bridge between our effort and the future we wish to create. The journey of wealth building is long, and without purpose, it becomes exhausting. But with purpose, every step feels lighter. Every risk taken, every lesson learned, every victory achieved becomes part of something bigger. Purpose is what gives wealth its true value. As you think about your own financial journey, ask yourself, what is all this for? Is it just to escape struggle, or is it to create freedom? Is it just to have more, or is it to do more? The answer will shape not only how you pursue wealth, but also how you live once you achieve it. Wealth is not the destination. It is the vehicle. And the destination is defined by your purpose. Build with that in mind, and money will never control you. Instead, it will serve you, empower you, and allow you to live a life of depth, meaning, and true freedom. Chapter 10. Choosing Your Financial Destiny. Life is filled with crossroads. Some are small, like deciding what to eat or which road to take home. Others are far greater, shaping the direction of our entire future. Money, and the way we think about it, is one of those great crossroads. Every choice we make around it, whether to spend or to save, whether to invest or to avoid, whether to take a risk or to play it safe, pushes us down one path or the other. For me, the crossroads was always symbolized by two fathers. One voice said, "Stay safe, study hard, get a secure job, climb the ladder, and never take chances." The other voice said, "Learn the language of money, build assets, take control. Don't let fear chain you to a paycheck." Each of us, whether we realize it or not, has similar voices around us. Maybe they come from our parents, our teachers, our friends, or society itself. And sooner or later, we have to decide which one we will follow. The truth is, there is no escaping the consequences of this choice. If you choose safety, you may find comfort in the short term, but you may also find yourself trapped in the endless chase of bills and obligations. If you choose courage, you may face uncertainty and failure along the way. but you open the door to freedom and growth. Neither road is easy, but one leads to dependence, and the other leads to independence. Your financial destiny is not written by fate, nor is it decided by luck. It is shaped every day by the small decisions you make, the coffee you buy without thought, the money you spend to impress others, the opportunity you ignore because of fear. All of these moments add up, and so do the moments where you choose differently, when you buy an asset instead of a liability, when you take time to learn instead of waste, when you step forward even though you're afraid. Each choice is like a seed, and over time, those seeds grow into the life you will live. It is easy to believe that the wealthy were born with advantages, that their destiny was different from ours. But countless stories prove otherwise. Many of the world's most successful people began with little or nothing. What they had was not wealth, but vision. They saw that they had the power to decide, to act, to change the course of their lives. And through persistence, they shaped their financial destiny into something extraordinary. We must also be honest. Not choosing is still a choice. If you refuse to face the crossroads, if you allow fear to silence you, then you have already chosen the path of dependence. The system will carry you along just as it carries millions into the cycle of earning, spending, and surviving. But if you decide with intention, if you claim the right to build and learn, then you take the pen into your own hand. You begin writing your destiny instead of letting others write it for you. I believe that deep down, everyone longs for freedom. Freedom to spend time with family. Freedom to travel, to create, to contribute, to live without the constant shadow of financial stress. That freedom is not given by governments or employers. It is earned through awareness, discipline, and courage. It is earned by deciding here and now that your financial destiny will not be one of chains, but one of choice. So as this journey nears its end, I leave you with this question. Which voice will you follow? The one that says, be safe, play small, and never risk. Or the one that says, learn, act, and create the life you deserve. Your financial destiny is waiting, but it will not wait forever. The longer you delay, the stronger the chains of comfort and fear become. But the moment you decide, the moment you take even the smallest step toward freedom, everything begins to change. The power has always been in your hands. The choice has always been yours. Now it is time to make it. Conclusion. As we come to the end of this journey, take a moment to reflect on where we began. It started with two voices, one urging safety, the other daring freedom. Between them lay a choice that each of us must eventually face. Will we spend our lives working for money, or will we learn to make money work for us? We discovered that schools may prepare us for jobs, but rarely prepare us for wealth. We learned the secret language of assets and liabilities, and how that simple distinction separates those who build freedom from those who remain trapped. We looked closely at the paycheck trap, that endless cycle that keeps so many running but never arriving. We explored the power of mindset, realizing that fear and greed often rule our decisions until we learn to master them. We understood why the rich don't simply work for money, but for systems, assets, and freedom. We saw the importance of taking calculated risks, the necessity of financial literacy, and the deeper meaning of building wealth with purpose. But beyond all these lessons, the greatest truth is this: your financial destiny is in your hands. It does not matter where you were born, how much you currently earn, or how little you know right now. What matters is your willingness to think differently, to learn, and to act with courage. Every great journey begins with one small step, And every fortune begins with one small decision. If you remember only one thing, let it be this: money is not the master of your life. It is a tool, a servant, something to be directed with knowledge and discipline. If you allow fear to control you, you will always be a prisoner to paychecks and bills. But if you choose to learn, to build, and to grow, then money will serve you. It will buy you not just comfort, but freedom. Do not wait for the perfect time. Do not wait for permission. The road will never be free of obstacles, but each step you take toward financial awareness brings you closer to independence. Build assets, learn the rules, take risks with wisdom, and above all, remember your purpose, because purpose is what gives wealth its meaning. This journey is not about becoming rich for the sake of riches. It is about living life on your own terms. It is about creating choices where once there were none. It is about giving yourself and those you love a future of possibility instead of limitation. So step forward. Begin today. Even the smallest action, reading, saving, investing, learning, is a seed planted for tomorrow. And as those seeds grow, you will see that the life you once thought impossible is within your reach. The voices will always be there. One will tell you to stay safe, to play small, to cling to what you know. The other will call you to be bold, to learn, to build, and to believe in yourself. Listen carefully. Choose wisely. For the voice you follow will decide not only your wealth, but the life you live. This is your moment. This is your chance. The choice is yours. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. I truly hope the ideas and stories you've heard have sparked something within you, a shift in the way you see money, success, and freedom. If even one lesson stays with you and inspires you to take action, then this journey has already begun to transform your life. If you enjoyed this audiobook, I invite you to stay connected with us by subscribing to English Audiobook. Here, you will continue to discover powerful lessons from books that inspire growth, wisdom, and lasting change. Every story, every summary, every message is crafted to help you take one more step toward the life you dream of. Remember, growth is not a destination, but a continuous journey. Every day offers you the chance to learn something new, to challenge an old belief, to build a habit that brings you closer to freedom. Keep feeding your mind with knowledge. Keep surrounding yourself with ideas that empower you. And never stop believing in your ability to grow. Your future is not fixed. It is created by the choices you make, the lessons you embrace, and the courage you carry forward. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep building the life you deserve. Until next time, stay inspired, stay motivated, and remember, the greatest investment you will ever make is in yourself.